to you all. It's Justin Dawson. It's the All Things TechIE podcast, and I hope you are all keeping well, keeping safe during this lockdown, and hopefully we're giving you loads of entertainment to listen to from the All Things TechIE podcast. This is your first time listening to us. Welcome along. We would love if you get involved by sending comments and also subscribing to our program. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast store, and it really means a lot to us. And you can also follow us on Twitter, AV Tech Junkies, as well. Now, under the spotlight is Kaleo Lee, and he is episode 25 of the All Things TechIE podcast. Thanks for listening.
The All Things TechIE podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie. That's XTREME media.ie.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. Before we kick off, Kaleo, I must ask, how's the homeschooling going? Or is your boys too young to worry about homeschooling yet?
No, my oldest, so he's in kindergarten, which is fine, and we do the homeschooling thing, and it's not bad. It's usually right around podcast time, or when I'm on Zoom conference calls, and all of a sudden it's like they want to make noise and hang out here, and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Who's this person on the other end of the line? Hello.
Yeah.
You got something to give me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, starting off, how did you enter the world of audiovisual? Where did you study anything in college that led you to this path?
No, not really. So I mean, college-wise, like AV was not even a thought. I was planning to, I always wanted to join the military. My parents were like, "You're gonna be a pilot, if you're gonna do anything." And so I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Prescott, Arizona, and started my degree off in aviation. It was called Aeronautical Sciences, and then 9/11 happened, and I particularly didn't see the market coming back anytime soon, nor did I particularly care for that pilot life. Which is weird to a lot of people, but that was just not my thing. And I couldn't switch to an engineering degree because I had a scholarship at the time for a non-technical degree, and then ended up joining the Army instead. Sat in Air Force class that everybody said, or the professor said, no matter what you do in the service, everybody supports the boots on ground. So I switched over to the Army. Parents were pretty upset. I had about a little under 3 months of leave before I ended up hopping on a plane to Iraq, and that's when I started working for my dad for a little while. He was like, "I need extra labor." I was like, "Cool." And then the guys, I fell in love with their passion for AV, and I was like, "There's got to be something about this thing."
This was while you were in Iraq.
No. Right before Iraq, I had some time to kill, so I had leave, and then they're like, "You can't take leave there, so do you want to take your leave early?" I was like, "Heck yeah, let's do that." And then my dad was like, "I got some extra time, or some extra labor needs," and I was like, "Okay, cool, I'll make some extra money."
So your dad is in the audiovisual industry as well?
Yeah. He owns a company in Hawaii.
Okay.
And then, I thought it was interesting. There's a guy, Scott Nishihara. He was one of my mentors when it came to installing. Incredibly talented installer, technician, and I wanted to get to that level. But AV wasn't in my thought, in my head yet as far as a career. And then I met my wife, girlfriend then. And I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll try staying like in one place," and so just because if we were doing something serious, the infantry life is not a life to necessarily.
So it was all her fault, is what it's all your wife's fault. That we could just end the conversation now, that it was all your wife's fault for settling. Now, you say your dad ran an AV company. Was it residential or was it more
Commercial? Yeah,
commercial?
yeah.
Yeah.
He's before I joined. He was residential, and then I think it was about two. Can't remember if it was the 90s, 98. That's right, 98. He got into the commercial space. He just foresaw the big box houses coming up, and was like, I don't want to compete against those guys. So he ended up just doing commercial instead.
Yeah. So did that lead you on to doing some study with, like, have you gone down your Avixa CTS?
So I had my CTS. I actually just let it expire this past July, which I've been kicking myself ever since. Huge regret.
Especially when all the courses are free now and you could have picked up RU points all over the place.
Well, it was I've always used manufacturer trainings as my like my renewal credits.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is I'm not their client anymore. So I was like, I'm asking for it. They're like, yeah, of course. And there's like no urgency. So June rolled around, July rolled around, and then August, and I was like, all right, it's gone.
Yeah,
so.
no, I think to myself, after getting the CTS, I said, I'm never going to let this lapse with OU points. Even if I just have to sit in the webinars, I'll get the points up,
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite role that you've had in AV then? I guess working for your dad is one thing, but family relationships, working together can be tough, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's got its pluses and minuses. The benefit is, I had his ear, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But our particular family dynamic is, just the kid always doesn't have enough experience. And so I always, I'd always ask. And if I didn't get the support, I'd figure out how to do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, and it's funny because for him, it was always like, we don't have the money for that. I was like, no, we don't need money. You just need time. You can either put in actual money or you can put in sweat equity. So a lot of things I made happen because of sweat equity, and, it usually worked out. So yeah, it's, and so my role that I wanted the most was when I came back from Iraq, I was like, I can actually use a lot of my organizational skills to, to run your tech department. At the time, they weren't large enough. They didn't have a tech manager or anything. He kind of was the guy, who oversaw everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I took it over. We built a lot of standards. I got 80% of the techs CTS certified, including myself. And, we made a lot of standards around, it was Infocom back then, but now Avixa, around a lot of their best practices, and it created a lot of standards and little manual and all that fun stuff. So that was my particular role that I was fondest of, that I didn't get to finish. I had a lot more I wanted to do, but then the recession hit while I was away at Iraq, and for Hawaii, it takes a couple of years for that to hit. So we actually thought we were bulletproof. Come to find out, no, it's coming. It's just delayed, and so they went through 3 sales managers, and I was like, again, same with the tech side. I didn't know sales, but I knew how to fix organizational problems, and that's when I took over the sales manager role. And that was probably the most rewarding, just because I got to see it through to the end. But it was an interesting time. And then I found that my knack is not necessarily any particular technology or any particular skill set. It was just, I like leadership, and I like being able to positively influence people. And so that's kind of why I stuck in sales.
Okay, and you're still working. Is that Brightsign your dad's company, or are you?
No.
You've
Yeah.
moved on from there.
We'd be a lot richer. No. So my wife is she went back to active duty, and so she ended up getting stationed here in San Diego, and then we were like, all right, let's give that a shot, just because her career path in Hawaii started to dry up a little bit. And so now a lot of it had to do with politics. It's funny because it's like, how do you not get certain jobs? Like she was ranked like top 1% in the Pacific is for like all captains and everything.
Cheers.
It was crazy.
Wow.
And then she ended up not getting a job, and then it was like, well, that's crazy. It was all right. And you know, and I could watch her soul die like a little every day as she worked in a certain position. And you know, I was like, no, like you got to do something. So then she put in for active duty, and then we got San Diego, and that's when I kind of did a year of a handoff to the now sales manager at my dad's company, the audiovisual company, and then I moved over to Brightsign in January of last year.
So what's the role involved in Brightsign now? Are you
Regional sales manager? So I'm not in charge of people, but I still get to work with resellers and kind of influence them in a positive way as far as, you know, the right way to use their product. You know, and that's one of the things that, like, in my particular approach, you know, I don't want people to sell it just to sell it, and then if it's the wrong tool, then people are gonna, you know, badmouth us. So it's always, you know, I want to know what the project is and kind of get a little involved and, you know, make sure that we're going down the right path. So
and then be able to hand it off to someone else to install. And
yeah, and it's you know, that's the part that I miss a little bit is, you know, from a manufacturer standpoint, you just get up to a point and you're like, like I want to see the rest of this project, and you know, you can't. So that's
I always ask this to all the people that I put under the spotlight in audiovisual. What was one moment where you went, oh crap, everything is going wrong? How do I put this right? What you always have one moment where the sweat beads absolutely pour. Usually it's live events, but I'm sure in your install days you've had moments where you go, okay, I don't want to tell my dad about this moment in time. So you can.
So my very first install was actually it was funny. We had a 40 something foot Stewart screen, so not cheap. Had to fly it to Hawaii, so that in itself was expensive, just the shipping. And you know, my job was just to wire up the switch, and you know, we're gonna test it once we got to the site, just because it's so large. So that particularly when we tested at the site, and you know, went down just fine, and it went up and it didn't stop. It rolled onto itself, like into the case, and it was a loud, you know, you just bang, like, oh crap, I'm trying to stop this thing, it's not stopping. The guy, you know, luckily one of our lead techs was, you know, wisely at the power outlet and just yanked the plug, and I was like, Jesus. Like, actually, the funniest part was when it happened, I hit the off, nothing happened, and then my first instinct was get rid of it. And there was another installer standing next to me who was just as clueless as I was. And I just threw it at him. He was like, what the? So, I don't know. I can't do anything. And then luckily, the Stewart guys were super cool. They flew down. They're like, yeah, it's the limiter probably came loose during transit. Hawaii has very terrible shipping. Everything gets damaged. That's just the way it is. I apologize for the crying kids in the background. I got
no, that's allowed. We're allowed to do this during COVID-19. If you want to even bring your kids into the program, you can always do so, because like this is the jokey topic that I think we have to do on the next All Things Techie, is find out how much the innocence from the mouths of kids do they know what daddy and mommy do in audiovisual. Like if you ask your son or daughter, well, your two sons rather, if you ask your two sons, what does daddy do for work, what do you think they would turn around and say?
I think he just thinks I'm on the computer all day. He knows I travel.
Games.
Yeah. He knows I travel, but I don't think that registers necessarily for him. I think I just go away, and then he just kind of hangs out with mom for the rest of the time until I come back. So yeah, I think he just thinks I play on the computer all day.
Now, with your role currently, like as regional sales manager, are you on the road a lot?
Yeah, usually about 50% of the time. So every other week I'm traveling. I'm sure my boss wants me to travel more. I found every other week's a good tempo for me. I get to plan and catch up one week, and then I go out and try to drive business the next week, and then just keep bouncing everything.
And I think that's so important when you have a young family as well and working in audiovisual. Now, I asked you the biggest mistake you did in audiovisual. What has been the biggest achievement for you?
Well, the biggest achievement is probably being able to be a piece of the pie that helped restructure our company to get to, basically grow. It was they were at a $10 million roadblock for years, and then the recession happened. They dropped down to 8. People were freaking out, and then I told my dad, I was like, yeah, let's do this thing. And it was funny because he doesn't remember the conversation, so if you ask him, he'll be like, I don't remember.
No, that was my clever idea. I'm in charge, so it's my idea. Yeah, I'll take
well, what he asked me was, he's like, you were in the service, right? I was like, yeah. He goes, what did you do again? I was like, I was in the infantry. Like, that was like my role. And he was like, all right, what do you do if you're being attacked? Because basically his manufacturers wanted to drop certain lines of, they wanted to reduce some of our purchasing power. Customers were obviously not happy because we're trying to catch up, and employees were starting to lose faith a little bit. And then that's when, I was like, well, I mean, you find the weakness. He goes, there's no weakness. Everybody's surrounding you, and it's even all around, and it just looks like you're gonna die. Like, well, I'm not a fan of dying, so I'm gonna pick a spot and I'm just gonna go towards it. And if I survive, then I'm gonna make that, obviously we created a weakness, and then make that our foothold. And then that's where we're gonna focus on our strong, positive, whatever it is that we're doing right, and then reconsolidate, reorganize, and how do we capitalize on that? And that's exactly what we did. I mean, it sounds simpler than it is. The concept is there, but once you execute, yeah, there's a fog of war that, it's very tough to get through. But, in business, I found it was the next exhilarating thing to actually being in combat. So yeah.
Now, I have to ask the question that now that you've been in a family-run audiovisual, would you ever think of going out on your own and doing it again? Or are you enjoying where you are?
I enjoy working for people. There's a financial piece that I watch my dad, have to juggle with, that I was just like, no, thank you. I enjoy having a paycheck.
Yeah. Especially when we talk about COVID-19 and the state of the AV industry. Stay where you are, guys. Yeah.
No, and it was tough. One of the reasons why we struggled was, my dad still has employees who were with him for like 30 plus years. And it's, I made a essential list board, and I was like, here's your employees, here, whatever, went down the organizational chart, took all the names off and said, who's essential? And then we would go through, and it was heartbreaking for him. And he still was like, I'm gonna make it work. And I was like, no. So we only ended up getting rid of like 3 people. I was looking for, in my head, 40% of them. And they were just, he held on to majority of them. We got through it. And that was, and he's all about the team. And that's what, where his strength in leadership is he's a example, team player guy. So
my late dad was an electrician, and maybe that's where I got the technical end of things and started putting on the techie hat. But now I'm talking about, he was running electrical business since 1967, right up till he was over 50 years in business. But of course, he was dealing with old transistor radios and equipment when everything started changing technically in the past 20 to 25 years. Did you have that feeling with your dad? Was he able to embrace new technology as much?
He is. So he's actually pretty surprising. He can grasp whatever he thinks is gonna make money. Like that's how he shifts. When HDMI became a thing, it was like, hey, look, we got to learn this thing. There's this thing called HDCP, and he'd just be like, I don't get it. It's nonsense. And it wasn't
It will never
until
catch on.
yeah. And I was like, no, I don't want it to catch on, but like it's a thing. Like we're gonna have to do this. And he fought it tooth and nail. And but okay, anything that costs him money or anything that's gonna make him money, that's what he catches. So luckily we ended up selling a large switcher. I think it was like a 48 by 48 matrix switcher, and it was supposed to have HDCP. I put in the order myself, and the manufacturer did not send one with HDCP keys on it, and so it was an extra 20 grand our cost to upgrade. So, and luckily the manufacturer was like, no, you're right, we screwed up, this is what we sent you and this is what you wanted. And thank goodness they fixed it. And that's when he was like, that could have cost me 20 grand. It's like, what is this thing? And then so brought in some trainers and taught us about HDCP, and he was like, that's stupid, but at least I know now. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, have you been to ISE, or are you just an Infocom?
Not ISE. That's one I've always wanted to go to. And that's one thing that my dad has been against, is because Hawaii is tough to travel out of, right? It's just expensive. And so he's very selective on what trips we were able to go to. When I was here at Brightsign, I had a chance to go to ISE. It was like literally when I first started, and I was just like, I would love to, but I just don't want that to be my first impression with the CEO there, me rambling about my lack of knowledge that I had for Brightsign. And I say lack of knowledge, I thought I knew then, but I know exactly what happened was once I got my training, I knew there was going to be a lot more information that I didn't have even as a reseller, just because now I have one product line to focus on. And so I'm glad I didn't go that year, but I'm bummed that I didn't go to ISC at all, ever.
Will the opportunities become available again?
Yeah, I hope so. It's right now we're just hunkering down, right? But hopefully once things pick up again, it gets offered. Yeah.
But on that note, you must have been. You say you haven't been to ISE. Infocom must be your thing. Have you been?
Yeah.
Have you?
I love it. It's Infocom Vegas is my particular
I was going to
flavor.
ask that question. Is it Vegas or Florida? That was my next question. So
yeah. And Vegas is only because I enjoy gambling, and so like, if I'm not out having fun and drinks with fellow AV tweeps, then I'm going out to go gamble and get that fix. But as far as so I don't mind Florida. Florida's cool. One of the reasons why I have short hair is I sweat a lot, so Florida's a lot more humid than Vegas. So, and that's another reason why I enjoy Vegas a little bit more. But yeah.
That's what everyone keeps on telling me, that you have to go to Vegas because you won't be able to manage the heat and the humidity in Florida. Now, to be quite honest, like I think Vegas has more interest, and I've just seen the lights and everything. I'm not into gambling myself. I'd probably end up like Homer Simpson if I went down the gambling route and like end up with the Vegas wife or something like that. Coming home. If you were to specialize in a certain area of audiovisual, now you've seen a bit of reselling and you've done installation. If you were to say, no, I could spend the next 20 years in a certain area of audiovisual, what would it be?
It would be the control side, learning whether it's the basic scripting that they have in there, the learning at it from HTML5 level, all that fun stuff. I would say it's the programming side. I think that's where the magic happens. That's the part that, even though people don't see it, if you program it well, it's basically that's what kind of makes or breaks the user experience. I mean, you can design a system, well, and just do basic switching, but if you can really if you can make your panels intuitive, if you can make it do your 50 different things you needed to do in the correct order to maximize efficiency, it's that experience of someone touching and making it happen that I believe makes or breaks the system. So
And are you a Crestron or an Extron guy, or neither? You might,
Um,
you can say neither if you want.
yeah, no, I enjoy both systems. As a integrator in Hawaii, particularly, Extron was our choice because Extron had by far the best support.
Mhm.
Crestron was great for new projects. You say, hey, I got this great opportunity. They're like, heck yes, let's do it. Once it's installed and you're like, hey, this isn't working, is like, call this number, and you're like, all right.
And hire a programmer, that's going to cost you a fortune. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. Which our programmers were solid. That was one thing that we have nailed down packed, since we were isolated and we didn't have a lot of talent to choose to pull from. We focused on all our programmers being whatever master programmer. I forget what the different ones were for all of them. We had them all from AMX to Extron to Crestron, some HTML guys. Yeah, it was a big feat, but that was our focus, is make sure that they're there, because a lot of times you call these guys. So Exxon was good because we call like we're pretty much friends at that point. You call my guy, and my guy is gonna either do something about it or get somebody on the phone first thing in the morning.
Mhm.
um you know Versus like Crestron, we had to be within their certain block of hours because Hawaii is 3 hours behind California. So a lot of people are done with the day, and you're like, all right.
Okay, now what do I do? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so if you were to have an if uh, sorry, I'll start that question again. If you were to have a present for Father's Day or your birthday, and it's a tech toy and an unlimited budget, what would it be?
Oh man. Honestly, it's it's not so much tech, it's just finishing up my truck. I just want to finish lifting my truck and get my rooftop tent on there. That's it. That's my thing right now.
It's not.
Uh,
It's not one of these pimp my ride type of ideas where you can.
no, no, no. It's so right now, like overlanding's a big thing here in the States, where basically you put a tent on top of your vehicle and you just drive to wherever you're trying to get to, pop it open, and you're done. So
Mm,
yeah.
that sounds cool. I like the point is, you guys have the weather for doing those type of things.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know what? With on talking about COVID-19 conspiracies of like 5G, it's all linked with 5G nonsense. And one thing that I'm confident of is that we are getting such great weather here in Ireland, simply because no one's driving around, the air is clear, and the sun is shining for the past 2 weeks. It's only rained once in the past 2 weeks here in Ireland. So long may it continue. If you were to give advice to someone new entering the industry, or even if your son turned around to you and said, Daddy, I want to join the audiovisual industry, would you let him?
Yeah, I'd tell him get more options, set himself up for success with a proper degree in something, whether it's computer science or um, engineering, or something along those lines. It's just having a skill to focus on, to me, is what is that called? It's a great foundation, and it's a necessary foundation. And so even though I didn't get my engineering degree, I still have to take certain things like fluid dynamics and thermodynamics and all that fun stuff, which helped a ton. I mean, granted, my first job where I was the lead tech, I definitely over engineered it, and people were like, why would you do that? And I was like, well, I know it's right. I mean, calculations wise. And they're like, well, just hold it up and level it, and we're done. I was like, yeah, okay, fair enough. I over engineered it, whatever. But I had a foundation. And then there was one where it really came into play. We had to have everything seismic rated, and the roof had angles all around, and we had to figure out what the 30-degree angle was. And so I basically engineered a jig with 3 laser pointers to where my anchor points were going to be, and then we just literally took that thing and it cut our install time by by 2/3. I mean, we took only a third of the time that we had planned for the project. So it was amazing. So
You talk like you know install a lot. So now that you have to renew your CTS,
yeah.
would you ever think of going on and doing your CTSI?
So I wanted to. That was always a thing. Just never had the time to do it. But yeah, it's I want to do it before I lose the information that's in my head. But yeah, it was on the horizon. In fact, that was one of my lazy things, was to plan it where, all right, instead of doing all my renewal credits, I just get my CTSI at that time and then go for the next, iteration, just so that I can, that'll be my RUs. But no, it never worked out that way. My willpower is very purpose driven. At the time, we had to restructure and get everybody standardized. So CTS was my focus, which was actually very interesting. I had less than a year in the industry, and I had to write a letter to say, hey, I grew up in the industry. Let me do this thing, which I didn't know anything about AV prior to, working for my dad's company. And yeah, they let me in and I passed it. So it was one of those, like, just rip the Band-Aid off. And it was the year, it messed me up because it was the year they switched. It used to just be like everything in the AV Essentials was how they used to do the test. And then they changed it. Luckily, I'm a really good test taker. And so I just found the pattern in what, the way that they're asking the questions. And so I was like, all right, obviously.
There is no pattern.
It was, well, for me, it was the year I took it was very customer preference focused, and ambient light, was the biggest topics that kept coming up. And that's what I was like, all right, let's gear my answers towards that. You still had to know the information, but at least I knew what they were looking for.
Well, you know what? Everyone else, like for me, from having the CTS, is there any way of studying it to make it easier? No, it's remembering the key word, the best answer. And I've had this conversation with Chuck. It's knowing what is the best answer. Like, you could look at those 4 multiple choice questions and go, no, that doesn't make sense. It couldn't be that easy. Don't doubt yourself. When it looks like it is the best answer, it knows that you are knowledgeable to know that that is the best answer out of them. Kaleo, it's been great talking to you. I guess with the great weather that you guys are having as well, and everyone at home, you're doing some fantastic barbecues as well, I'd say.
Oh yeah, I got a new smoker right before this whole thing happened, and I just been smoking food for like almost every day. So nice. It's amazing. Ribs have never tasted so good. We made for St. Patty's Day, I gave my first shot at corned beef and cabbage, and that one came out pretty good. Next year I'm gonna do my own what is that called, seasoning. This one was store-bought, and everything came out perfect. The moistness and everything. It was the seasoning that they used was a little too salty for my taste, but it was, I've been hitting up everything I can. Sometimes I just grow vegetables just because it's, it makes it soft and tasty, so it's amazing.
We have a lot to learn. But like, have you been to Ireland yet? No.
Not yet. It's on one of my it's on my bucket list. It's so I'm a mix of a lot of ethnicities, and then I have a very small, like, little bit of Irish, and it's funny because you'll see it pop up in my like my facial hair every once in a while. I get a random red thing, and I was like, what is this? And my mom's like, oh, your great-great-grandfather married an Irish woman. And I was like, really? Like, that's like a random piece of information. Because at the time, Hawaii was still an independent nation, of Hawaiians. And I was like, whoa, how do you meet her? It was like on his travels, he was going about, meeting with other countries and their dignitaries, and fell in love with this Irish woman. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Well, that works. Yeah, well, hopefully you get to Ireland and try out some real Irish food then at some stage.
Yeah. No, I'm down to try it all. And it's it's like some people talk about like the exotic stuff. I think what is it? Is it haggis that everybody talks about? Like the
haggis, yeah. No.
Yeah.
I've tried it once. No, it's not nice. No,
I mean, everything's always good to try. In Hawaii, we eat everything from like, so I grew up with pig's feet, bird's nest, shark fin, fermented eggs. What is it called? We eat tripe all the time. Which is just intestines and everything. So yeah, it's.
and
I'll try anything.
would you be able to put your son in front of all these type of things, and would he eat them?
No, we raised him with a very American palate. He does not eat anything exotic.
Burgers and chips. Sounds like my kid, actually. Yeah. Like, the funny thing is, like, that you put a plate of food in front of him, and as soon as I sit down to eat, he wants everything off my plate, But that's the toddler in him, But, I'm still trying to get him to eat more veg, but he's a meat eater. He would get on well with you. Just
yeah. No, we lucked out. My in-laws live with us, and their kid loves to, or their oldest loves to eat broccoli, and so my kid all of a sudden was like, I love broccoli. Like, oh heck yeah, let's do it.
Let's keep that going. Great talking to you, and take care and keep safe over there.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. It was a good time.
Cheers.
The All Things TechIE podcast is a product of the Extreme Media Network. For advertising and sponsorship opportunities, please visit www.extrememedia.ie. That's XTREME media.ie.